Warning, I say a lot of bad words. If you're under 13, you probably shouldn't be watching this.
Oh, yes, Senator. Oh, yeah, our full resources are dedicated to resolving... Yes, sir. Oh, that's very wise of you, sir. Thank you, sir, yes.
The 2010s were a weird period for Mega Man. It started off fine enough with Mega Man 10, and recently the series has been treated pretty well with the release of Mega Man 11 and the legacy collections of the classic X and Zero runs. But the time in between has been pretty barren, with hardly anything coming out, most of the titles getting cancelled for reasons I don't think anyone really knows, and whatever the fuck this monstrosity is. Also, there was that one cartoon that just died. In the middle of Mega Man's long hiatus came a Kickstarter for a Mega Man spiritual successor developed by Concept, a studio formed by Mega Man art director Kaiji Inafune. Over the course of 3 years, this entire crowdfunding campaign for a Mega Man-like spiritual successor would have become a total disaster. Multiple delays, the game going from a cool visual style to cheese pizza explosions, another Kickstarter popping up for some game called Red Ash before Mighty No. 9 was even finished, and Deep Silver acting as publisher, who have published past titles such as Not to mention 3DS and Vita versions are still nowhere to be found nearly 4 years after launch, and let's be real, they're never gonna happen. Also a very strong contender for the single worst advertising of all time.
Make the bad guys cry like an anime fan on prom night.
Robot Boy fighting other robots is the most anime thing ever, and this ad just straight up insulted everyone in that target demographic. Somebody had to be fired for that. I refuse to believe they weren't. You could spend a whole video going over just the Cliff's Notes of this entire incident, and the only reason it's not the biggest gaming disaster of the previous decade is because Fallout 76 is a thing. But, you know, behind the scenes stuff and the final game are totally separate things, so let's inspect the damage. Something weird is that every time I start up the game and all the company names and logos come up, it's a blocked scene. This isn't even spoiler stuff at all, it's literally just the developer, publisher, and game engine. Didn't know the game being made in Unreal Engine was something vital to prevent spoilers for. I'm pretty sure most video games are made in Unreal. We begin during current year. We live in a peaceful utopian society, and that's why the government is manufacturing military robots. Unfortunately, a pandemic breaks loose and begins sending the world into chaos. The robots in this futuristic society have gone apeshit. Look guys, you don't know how bad this all is. This still image got a negative filter applied to it. There is smoke materializing out of nothing. This is serious shit, okay?
My fellow Americans, in this time of crisis, we at Cherrydyne would just like to express that this isn't our fault.
Hey, don't tell anyone I said this, but I think he might be the bad guy. We play as Mighty No. 9, or Beck, who is basically just a lame version of Mega Man. He's our only hope, and by that I mean everyone is gonna die. Even Beck's creator has one functioning brain cell.
Beck, did you just absorb the cells of a weakened robot and, my goodness, assimilate them? Of course, I designed him with that capability.
That was written. This is Dr. White. He's this game's version of Dr. Light. Very creative and not confusing name choice, I know. Maybe they're cousins that have a distant relative named Dr. Bright, or Dr. Trite, or Dr. Sight, or Dr. Bite, or Dr. Pepper. Alongside Dr. White is Dr. Sonda, whose entire character is Funny Fat Man. Just, you know, they forgot the funny. I have a gut feeling that if Mighty No. 9 ever got a live-action video game adaptation for some fucked up reason, Dr. Sonda would be played by none other than Mr. Paul Blart Mall Cop. Okay, to be honest, the game actually doesn't start off on that bad a note. I won't act like its first impression is great, because it's pretty easy to see where they cut corners and nobody ever knows when to shut up, but I at least finished the opening level knowing how to play the game, and with a general feel of how the game works. The opening level, I'd say, is at least decent. It's nowhere near as clever as the opening of, say, Mega Man X, but still, it definitely starts off on a better note than X7. Then again, so does cock and ball torture. Like a typical Mega Man game, the main mechanics are jumping and shooting, though this game differs with a dash ability that gives you an extra horizontal boost and absorbs enemies. If nothing else, the game at least feels nice to play. The control is tight and responsive, and boosting is a pretty satisfying mechanic. It was honestly kind of a breath of fresh air immediately jumping from X7 to this game, which I feel very dirty actually saying out loud about this game. I feel like I'm violating some public indecency law out there. As for how the mechanics are implemented into the actual game, I said the dash mechanic at least feels nice, and it does, until the game forces you to use it ever so blatantly. Every enemy gets stunned and open for synergizing after a couple shots, meaning there's pretty much no reason to ever kill the enemies normally, since they take 50 more shots and there's no advantage to killing the enemies like how you've done so in every other video game ever made. The bosses all have this really annoying gimmick where you have to boost into them to get all the damage you've done against said boss to remain permanent, or else they heal it off. I get that Beck needs to free all the robots for plot reasons, but let me at least fight them normally without having to do this shit. This is dumb. The main plot is that there's 9 robots called the Mighty Numbers, or Mighty No's, because no. 8 of them all went apeshit and Beck has to save them and the world. Like I said, he's apparently the last hope for humanity. Every human on Earth would be very wise to head to the nearest nuclear bunker right now. Also, this is the second piece of media I've experienced where the main character is a blue robot who happens to be the 9th in a particular series. For the record, Jenny would totally wreck this little shit. Like Mega Man, you can tackle the Mighty No's in your desired order, but I decided to go for Mighty No 1 first because I'm boring. His name is Pyro. He's a fire guy. His stage is an oil platform. Get it? It's clever, I think? For the most part, it's pretty harmless and inoffensive, and the oil catching fire is admittedly a pretty interesting stage hazard. That said, there's this one really bullshit part with the bottomless pit that killed me the first time I saw it, and the enemy placement, while not usually cheap, is mostly just a chore to deal with. But that said, this level isn't exactly what I'd call bad. Nope, never mind. This is bad. I had no way of seeing that coming, and it killed me in an instant. I had to take this part of the level at a snail's pace because there's no way I'm risking going as fast as I can to get through this. Please tell me nobody thought that was good. Because it wasn't good. After that, you have to dodge more falling silos, while jumping above bottomless pits. And enemies are raining fire on top of you in the background. My favorite part is the shitty boss at the end whose attacks are almost solely based around audio cues that are barely audible from the battle theme, and who has an insta-kill attack at the halfway point of the fight that's drowned out by characters talking.
It's no use, Beck. He's too far gone. You'll have
Mighty No 2. Cryo. She's ice-related. Very creative naming and theming, I know. Her stage is a water level. The water level then transitions into crappy ice physics. No! I will give this game some credit here though. In a lot of the stages, each of the Mighty Numbers you rescue will actually help you out in later parts of the level that you play through. Specifically in levels where you have the weakness for the stage's boss. Not gonna lie, that's actually a nice small touch and it does help make these robots feel more like a family unit. Just wish they had better characters than...
Well, nice to see you, Beck. You're on thin ice here, Run, so try not to get cold feet, okay?
Ice puns. This entire fucking character is nothing but bad ice puns. This writing is literally Batman and Robin tier. Why did I think playing this game was a good idea? But yeah, fire defeats ice. Who would have figured that out? I'll admit from this point forward, I looked up the weakness chart for the game and just tackled the levels based on that, and going off of it, I went to the military base to fight Mighty No 5. It's a mostly alright factory level. Nothing really stands out from it that much, but it's fine. I died a few times, though I imagine that was more from me being an idiot than the fault of the level. Though unfortunately, you have to hear more of Dr. Sanda's hilarious talking, and I've never felt such hatred for any collection of visual and audio assets. In between stages are cutscenes of Dr. White, Sanda, and Bootleg Roll trying to unravel some conspiracy surrounding why the robots went berserk. Unfortunately, it's so poorly written and it comes off like a really cheap anime from 2 to 3 decades ago that later got a 4Kids dub. Also, they didn't even bother animating anyone's face, or really anything outside of a static idle animation. Gotta say though, very accurate visual representation of my brain every second of every day. Level 4, Mighty No 4, mine. You know, I just noticed that every level in this game is given the most generic, unimaginative name you possibly could give to the respective location. Oil platform, waterworks bureau, military base, mine. Oh, and by the way, this level is shit. Throughout the game, there's these purple electric spike obstacles that will always kill you instantly on contact every time. They are goddamn everywhere in this level. They line the walls, they line the floors, they line the ceilings, they go back and forth, they rip off Armored Armadillo's level. At this point, any enjoyment I got from previous levels not being total absolute garbage pretty much disappeared here. Word of advice for any aspiring game designers: if you intend on placing an insta-kill obstacle down a hole the player has to drop into, make sure the camera can see it before the player drops, or else this will happen and someone's gonna smash the controller. So many parts of this level are just unnecessarily claustrophobic. Why are these drops so narrow? This isn't fun, it's stressful. By the way, I hope you beat the military base guy before going to this level, because progress is pretty much impossible without the exploding drill ability. I have no idea how you'd even pass the stupid ass chase sequence without it. I feel like there's probably a way to do it, but fuck me if I ever figure it out. I then chose the highway, and I'll say it's probably the most visually interesting level in the game, even with the whole Hanna-Barbera looping background thing. I think it's at least interesting that it transitions from Rainy City to Tunnel to Sunset before the boss. I just feel bad for all the poor drivers I'm probably scaring the shit out of when repeatedly jumping on their vehicles. The level starts off fine in its own inoffensive way, but then there's an auto-scrolling section. No, fuck you. I will say though, it probably has one of the cooler mighty numbers in the game, even if he looks like a total edgelord. Up next, Power Plant.
What happened to the lights? I'm scared. Mommy!
Someone please help me, I am in excruciating pain right now. The level has the lights constantly flicker off and on, making it difficult to see platforms.
Nosferatu!
Think of any platformer level that's been made bad by terrible lighting. That is this level. Plus insta-kill obstacles that you need to be pixel perfect to avoid. The end boss is electricity based and her main character trait is repeatedly making Z sounds. Also later in the game she makes an electricity pun. So yeah, the ice mighty number is Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin, and the electricity mighty number is Mr. Electric from Sharkboy and Lava Girl.
What?
I then went to tackle Mighty No 8, and I'll admit he's probably my favorite of the bosses in this game. It has nothing to do with Steve Bloom voicing the character. Okay, no, I lied. That has everything to do with it.
Wondering what happened to all the humans here, little doggy. They ran away. Cowards. Every single one of those meat sticks fled at the first sign of trouble. Pathetic.
Quality. I'll also say the whole cowboy bounty hunter motif with this guy is actually pretty cool too. As for the level, I at least appreciate the attempt to make it non-linear, but in the end it all leads to a bunch of tedious running back and forth trying to repeatedly hit him, all the while stopping and ducking repeatedly to avoid oncoming fire. Also, the boss is about as easy as stand behind him and he'll never hit you. Gee, I wonder who the fake Steve Bloom robot cowboy could possibly be. They look so indistinguishable. Last level has wind. That's it. Also a couple enemies that for some reason only have 8 frames of animation per second. I am so fucking done with this goddamn piece of shit. The thing with this game is that it's not always terrible, but when it's bad, it's bad. And there's never any truly great or even above average parts of the game. If a level isn't based on a trope notorious for being not good, and quite frankly being one of the worst examples of said tropes I've ever played through, it just ends up being standard inoffensive fluff, and I'm running out of things to say. The story isn't even that good because the dialogue is garbage, and the whole thing is a needlessly convoluted conspiracy to reveal that the guy at the beginning who looks suspiciously like a bad guy is, in fact, a bad guy. It's not even a fun kind of stupid like Sonic Adventure, it's just groan-inducing. The last couple of levels are a stealth section with Bootleg Roll, which apparently was one of the stretch goals, and wow, what a lame payoff. Literally all that happens if you're seen is that one of these turrets goes apeshit for a few seconds before going about its day. The penultimate level is mostly a culmination of everything wrong with this game that I've already mentioned, but I'll say that all the mighty no's working together and conversing is admittedly kinda charming. Probably would have been better payoff for characters that are more than just one exaggerated trait, but I'll take anything at this point. It's time for the final level! Thank fucking god. The Coliseum at the beginning gets engulfed by a robot created by Dr. White called Trinity. Essentially, she's a prototype of what Beck ended up becoming, who went berserk because Dr. White literally programmed her to grow. Just to grow. How do you even remember to breathe?
Beck, you and Trinity possess the same power. She simply does not understand how to wield it. You must teach her how to control it.
I'm pretty sure any and all conflict in this world would disappear if any of these scientists just stopped to think for 5 seconds. Final boss is total BS, so I didn't bother beating it. As far as I'm concerned, Beck failed to stop Trinity, the whole world is fucked, and everyone is gonna die. That's really the best way that all this can end. Mighty Number 9 was not good, but I'll be honest, as far as bad games go, I admittedly had some fun with this one. More than I'd honestly like to admit. Though that comes down more to the game not feeling terrible to play because the level and boss design doesn't do this game any favors. Pretty much all enjoyment I got from Mighty Number 9 happened in spite of these aspects rather than because of them. It's really bad, not one of the worst games ever made bad, but still really, really bad. I think what makes this easier to get angry at than other bad games is that Mighty Number 9 was crowdfunded. People donated hard-earned money out of their own pockets because they genuinely wanted this game to see the light of day, and the final result was a total embarrassing mess. There really should have been more care put into this, considering generous donations and goodwill from fans is the reason this game even existed in the first place. All people wanted was a new Mega Man game, or at least something to scratch the itch after years without having one. Why did a fucking circus act have to happen? I'll give it this though, I can name at least 2 other Mega Man games I'd happily take this over any day, so Mighty Number 9 gets an honorary not as big a failure as you could have been award. Good job, Concept, you made a better Mega Man game than X6 and X7. You avoided the very bottom of the barrel. Good night and play Mega Man 11.